A father coaxes his young son into a public restroom, quietly locking the door behind them. He spreads toilet paper across the cold floor, creating a makeshift bed where his son nestles against him and drifts off to sleep. Suddenly, urgent knocking rattles the door. The father quickly covers his son's ears while bracing his foot against the door, desperate to keep the noise from waking his sleeping child. He's fighting to preserve the last shred of innocence in his son's heart, and perhaps the final remnant of his own dignity as a father. As the pounding intensifies outside, this usually strong man breaks down, tears streaming down his face. But he forces himself to cry silently, swallowing every sob. Life has simply become too hard to bear. This scene is from one of President Trump's favorite inspirational films. If you're feeling anxious or lost about your current situation, take a moment to hear this story through. In 1981, America plunged into an economic crisis that widened the gap between rich and poor to extreme levels. The wealthy cruised around in sports cars with beautiful women, while the destitute collapsed on street corners, ignored by everyone. President Reagan appeared on television delivering devastating economic reports, while across town sat a worried black man named Chris. He had recently invested his entire savings in medical scanning equipment, hoping it would be his ticket to a better life for his family. Reality delivered a crushing blow. The scanners were only slightly more accurate than X-rays, but cost twice as much, making them nearly impossible to sell. His wife stared at the stacks of unsold equipment with despair. Her husband hadn't made a single sale in over 2 months. They could barely afford food, and their son had to transfer to the cheapest daycare available. To keep the family afloat, his wife worked 2 jobs, and the mounting pressure transformed into resentment toward her husband. Chris endured it all in silence. Then his car was impounded for unpaid parking tickets. He was already 2 months behind on rent with a pile of fines to pay. Chris had hit rock bottom. He wandered the streets aimlessly until a sleek sports car caught his eye. Unable to resist, he approached the owner with 2 simple questions. What do you do? And how do you do it? The answer, stockbroker, ignited something in 28-year-old Chris. He made a silent vow to become one himself. That evening, he shared his decision with his wife, only to be met with mockery and disbelief.
Stockbroker.
Yeah.
Not an astronaut? Do you remember that rent is due next week? Probably not. We're already 2 months behind. Next week, we'll owe 3 months.
She reminded him he barely finished high school, but her skepticism didn't deter him. The next day, he showed up at a brokerage firm, but without a degree or experience. The HR manager wouldn't even grant him an interview. Chris didn't give up. He waited outside the building every day for 2 weeks, hoping for a chance to introduce himself. Finally, he spotted the HR manager and pretended to bump into him accidentally, eagerly shaking his hand. The manager was rushing to headquarters for a meeting, so Chris claimed they were headed the same direction and hopped into the taxi with him. During the ride, Chris pitched himself relentlessly while the manager focused on a Rubik's Cube, the latest craze. The manager scoffed that these tricks were impossible to solve. Sensing an opportunity, Chris bet he could solve it before they reached their destination. The manager smirked dismissively but soon ate his words. Chris quickly completed one side, knowing this might be his only shot at a better life. As the taxi neared its destination, Chris stayed calm under pressure and solved the entire cube. The manager stared in disbelief, finally seeing the young man before him with new eyes. In his rush to leave, the manager forgot to pay the fare. Chris watched the meter tick higher and higher, his stomach knotting. He didn't have enough money to cover it. At the next red light, he made a split-second decision and bolted from the cab. "I'm sorry," he yelled, running with his scanner as the driver gave chase. He dove through the subway doors just as they were closing, but the scanner got stuck outside. Even as the train began moving, Chris refused to let go. That equipment represented his family's entire monthly income. That's life for you. It doesn't care that you're already struggling. It just keeps coming at you, relentless and unforgiving.